Good evening and welcome to another memorable night. Australian Sport's Night of Nights, Nicole, there's no doubt about that. This is the 34th edition of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame Induction Awards Gala Dinner. In front of a capacity audience, it's great to see so many here from right around the country here at the Palladium. Tonight, we celebrate the magnificent sporting achievements that have shone brightly under the stars of the Southern Cross.
This evening, 8 sporting greats from on and off the field will be honoured with induction into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. We will celebrate our rising stars, our scholarship recipients, and we'll also crown the winner of the Don for the year's most inspirational sporting performance and celebrate our 40th legend of Australian sport. And we'll meet the Australian sporting royalty that have gathered with us here tonight, over 85 members of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame, all icons of Australian sport.
Ladies and gentlemen, if sport was a medieval land, this would be a meeting of its kings and queens. I give you Australia's greatest sporting team, the members of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
The power of sport. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison campaigning for anti-apartheid movement. 27 years. At the 2006 Laureus Awards, he said the following: "Sport has the power to change the world." Sport has the power to change the world. This is Nelson Mandela. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. Sport can create hope where once there was despair.
Thank you, John, for being your chair. I'd also like to recognise my Senate colleague, Senator Don Farrell. We're both actual proof that sport unites in politics. One thing that everyone in this room has in common is a shared love of, a passion for and a commitment to sport. We recognise the pivotal role that sport plays not just in our national psyche, helping define us as a nation, but also to the health and well-being of our citizens.
Please welcome our first scholarship recipient, T12 1500 metre world record holder Jared Clifford, who will be mentored by Australia's first and only Taekwondo Olympic gold medalist Lauren Burns OAM. Our next recipient is snowboarder Tess Cody. The youngest Australian to qualify for the 2018 Winter Olympic team, Tess will be mentored by one of dual Olympic gold medalists, awesome foursome members, rower Nick Green OAM. Next up is rower Georgia Patton, who will be mentored by Hockeyroos captain and three-time Olympic gold medalist Rochelle Hawkes AM. Next up is diving young gun Cassiel Rousseau, mentored by Iron Woman Carla Gilbert OAM. Next up, our final scholarship recipient is Cameron Shields, the first four-wheeled motorsport athlete to be selected into our program, and he'll be mentored by two-time baseball World Series winner, the New York Yankees' Graham Lloyd. Ladies and gentlemen, our recipients. Let's meet our first inductee.
Robin Ma AM is inducted into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame as an athlete member for the sport of basketball.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our newest member of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. You really were a trailblazer and pioneer for the sport of basketball. When you look back on your career now, how proud are you of the achievements of that era for Basketball Australia and also yourself?
Yeah, well, it's been a long time now, but back in 1984 when we first made an Olympic Games for Australia, that was pretty special, and to be part of that that group and that team, it was fantastic. And then to keep the flow on.
Alan Moffat, OBE, is inducted into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame as an athlete member for the sport of motor racing.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame, Australian motor racing icon, Alan Moffat, OBE. To you and Colin Bond.
Colin was a great driver and a good friend of mine for many years, yes. And I had a car that I was driving that had a little bit of a problem for me because as I was going around the last turn at the top of the hill, my brakes went to the floor. So it gives you a little bit of a and fortunately, Colin was still a little bit further behind me, so I just said to myself, I'm not going to rest my foot on the brake because the brake's already gone to the floor. Oh. And I had to drive the rest of that day with no brakes.
Congratulations on now being a member of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much.
Wendy Botha is inducted into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame as an athlete member for the sport of surfing.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Sport Australia Hall of Fame, surfing great Wendy Botha. Find you, or did you find surfing? How did you get into it?
Well, I was from a small town in South Africa, and I was a great swimmer, and I loved from when I was like 2 years old. And it was strange because I went to the beach all the time with my dad, who's a keen fisherman, and I looked up and I never noticed surfers. And then at the end of primary school, there were a bunch of boys at my school, and I didn't even know that they were already state surfers. And they invited me and a bunch of other girls down the beach to try surfing in the school holidays, and that was it. I was hooked.
Sam Coffer AM is inducted as a general member into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Sport Australia Hall of Fame one of our finest sporting administrators, Sam Coffer AM. Was something you, am I right in saying, took to very early on, because that one of the things you did was the Hawthorn, I think at the boys' club, you wanted to change it, did you not, to the Hawthorn Youth Club so that girls could participate as well?
Yeah, well, I could not believe, I could not understand why boys and girls couldn't use the same facilities. I really couldn't. And I joined the Hawthorn Boys Club, as it was, and asked the question, why are no girls here? They said, oh, where do you come from? I mean, you can't have boys and girls together, So that was my campaign, 4 or 5 years, and going back and forth to the council. Eventually, we finished up with the Hawthorn Citizens Youth Club.
Harry Kuehl is inducted into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame as an athlete member for the sport of football.
Please welcome to the stage to accept the induction medal on Harry's behalf, Hall of Fame member Raleigh Rassick. And Harry kicking the equalising goal to send Australia into the round of 16. He lived for those big moments, didn't he?
But this is what great players are about, when they turn up when you need them. And Harry Kuehl always was at the right time at the right place.
Given how good he was as a player, how good will he be as a manager?
I would be more delighted than anybody else if Harry Kuehl would become Socceroos coach tomorrow. Thank you. Sam is not here, but I thank you for a privilege. This Hall of Fame is something that we experience here. I was inducted in '89 with late Jack Gibson, Alan Davidson, and late Artie Bitson. And this, since '89, became my home.
Darren Lockyer is inducted into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame as an athlete member for the sport of rugby league. Please welcome into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame,
one of the league's finest, Darren Lockyer. Played on every stage. Is representing your country the sweetest thing you can do?
It's always been the highest honour, and I think, again, as a kid growing up, waking up early in the morning to watch the Kangaroos play Great Britain in England, that was always something I wanted to do. I think the most rewarding thing for I guess a player in our code like AFL, like soccer, is winning premierships. Yeah. That's what you work so hard for. You treasure those, but there's no better feeling than singing the national anthem like we did tonight, but knowing you're about to go into battle for your country against someone else.
True.
Celebrating an outstanding career, Drew Ginn OAM is inducted into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame as an athlete member for the sport of rugby.
Please welcome to the Sport Australia Hall of Fame, Drew Ginn. You had to work immensely hard to get on the water with Duncan. Talk to us about how hard that was.
Yeah, so Chris O'Brien here, my coach as well, and my wife Melanie. So there were only a few people that really knew. And I ruptured my disc in my back in the heat row, and because I'd had that happen in Sydney and had surgery after Sydney, I knew what that felt like. And it was one of those weird things. I don't think I can ever fully appreciate what you go through, but the thought of my kids was a massive motivator for two reasons. One is I didn't want to stuff up my back for the rest of my life, but the other part was I wasn't going to give up easily either. And I remember handing a photo to Chris O'Brien to put onto the boat, just my two little kids, and Dunks knew about it, and basically it was just really emotional. And to get through that race was extraordinary because the first 500 or 600 metres felt normal. Actually, the hardest part was actually sitting down in the boat. That was the most painful. But once the race was happening and it was all going on, it almost like autopilot. And with about 400 metres to go, I could feel my right leg going floppy. And in the footage that most people that know rowing would sort of see is that I'm hardly pulling any weight on the blade at all. And Dunks is steering like mad to start with the boys, and we can see the Canadians coming at us. And I remember just sort of sitting there thinking, hang on, Drew, just get to the finish line. I laid down, I couldn't get back up straight away, so it was pretty painful.
Well, it paid off. It was a gold medal in that particular race and an outstanding career. You're still giving back to athletes and to the rowing community. Drew Ginn, congratulations on being inducted into the Sporting Hall of Fame.
Dan Woodhouse is inducted into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame as a general member for the sport of horse racing.
Please welcome into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame, the First Lady of Racing, Gai Waterhouse. Can you believe it? The only father and daughter to be inducted into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. The only one.
It's amazing when you stand up here and when you started this afternoon when we were together, all the inductees, you just feel so humbled and so tiny in your own little sport when there's so many greats here. Each one of you that are here tonight, and I watched you all on the stage, you're such champions. And then when they played the national anthem, the tears, I'm just so proud of Australia. I'm so proud to be part of tonight.
Well, you deserve it. Don't worry about that.
It is time to welcome and to formally induct the newest members into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. The induction ceremony has a degree of formality because this is a significant historic occasion. Induction is an honour bestowed on these individuals by current members who represent our country's greatest sportsmen, women, achievers and contributors. As chairman of the selection committee and on behalf of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame and all the members here and everyone in attendance, Wendy Botha, Sam Coffer, Drew Ginn, Harry Kuehl, Darren Lockyer, Robin Marr, Alan Moffat and Gai Waterhouse, I now formally induct you into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
Good evening, everybody. What a wonderful evening this is, and it is such an honour to be among you. I'm delighted to announce that the winner of the Don Award is Kurt Fernley.
I grew up with an understanding about the Don, and it was as much about integrity and humility as it was about excellence in sport. And I recognise tonight that I am the first within our Paralympic movement to hold up this prestigious award. But I have no intention of self-congratulation. I have to point behind me to the generations of proud men and women with disabilities who allowed me to become the person and athlete that you see fit to receive this award. Sir Donald Bradman once said that athletes who receive recognition, they also have a duty to mankind. Well, I am honoured to receive this recognition, and I am honoured by the Don Award. And I will do my best to be worthy of it. Thank you.
OBE becomes the 40th member to be elevated to legend status in the Sport Australia Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, Richie Benaud is now officially a legend of Australian sport. Would you please welcome to the stage his wife Daphne, brother John, and Richie's son Jeff.
John, Richie was not an overnight success. He started in 51, 52, and you know, he had a modest beginning in many ways. Your father, Lou, you've mentioned your mum, Ren, a moment ago, but your father, Lou, was a great spin bowler in his own right. So what about that lesson he taught him on Sutherland Road not long after he'd come back from one of his first tours?
Well, from memory, it was his first tour, 53, and he hadn't had a great time in England. And what was I at the time? 8 years old. I remember standing on the front veranda and watching Dad and Rich go out into Sutherland Road and put the handkerchief down and a garbage tin as the stumps, and Rich wheeling away. And Dad always encouraged us to, in playing our cricket, to be a bit harsh when you're making self-judgments. And Richard made the self-judgment on this tour that his bowling wasn't up to scratch, and he'd consulted Bill O'Reilly. And Rich had to tell Dad that no longer was he going to just stick to Dad's advice. He was going to have to go and do what Bill O'Reilly had told him.
How did Lou take that?
Oh, well, as far as I know, I was only 8 years old.
Because the difference was that your father wanted Richie to bowl a different ball every ball almost, and O'Reilly told him he needed to get a pressure ball, didn't he?
That's correct. Yeah, Dad was a fairly adventurous spin bowler. He'd, as you say, like to try a different ball, every ball in an over, and couldn't really maintain as much pressure as you needed to do when you got into the first class game. Although Dad was a very good spin bowler, he hadn't played first class cricket.
What about Richie, the commentator? Did he ever come home to you and say, Daff, I've had a bad day? Because none of us ever thought he had one.
Well, no, he never said that either. I mean, I would have been watching and I might have said, not the best, but...
Jeff, was he hard act to follow? Benno's...
Well, one of the good things about Dad was, as a father, he was just like he was in the rest of his life. He was very fair and benign and very balanced, and he had a great sense of humour. But he also was very philosophical. He used to say, you've got to take the rough with the smooth. And he had a saying, you know, it's all part of the rich tapestry of life. And he would say that sometimes through very gritted teeth, but he would say it. And he would pass that on to me. But the best thing he did for me was to say, you've got to be your own person. You've got to go your own way. and live your own life in your own way. And that's something I've always appreciated.
I think Richie was asked to give his best 11 at some stage, and he picked it for players that changed the game and players we would remember when they were gone. And that's what we've done tonight with Richie Benaud.